Hello and welcome to Motorsport Monday on Let's Talk Sport. I'm Jamie Davis alongside Harry Wright and Jack Price. So Nico Rosberg, of course, has won his first ever World Championship, a phenomenal achievement. And of course he joins his dad Keke Rosberg as well as Damon Hill did with his dad Graham. Incredible story really to wrap up the season.
Yeah, it's quite fantastic really, to be honest. I mean, I think at the start of the season, it's one of those things where every year is this Rosberg's year, kind of like with David Coulthard in the late 90s. It was sort of like, is this his year to win it? And then, Hamilton would start to do well, and you think, perhaps not. Maybe Rosberg can come back. But Rosberg this year has just been phenomenal. He's finally done what he set out to do. He's played the long game, and it's worked. He's done his bit where it's needed, and he's figured out, he doesn't need to do so much where he doesn't need to, and it's worked so well for him. So I think, fantastic year for Rosberg, obviously.
Jack, obviously there was 21 races, the longest ever in Formula One history as a season. Do you think there was one particular race at all, or was it just in terms of consistency that won it for Nico?
I think you've got to go with the consistency. I think although he won less races than Hamilton in the end in the season overall, I think he's always been there. He's always been on the podium. I'm sure almost every race he was on the podium, wasn't it? If not.
You wouldn't him without it would seem very odd.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Rosberg's played the long game. He's been there throughout the whole season. I think we'll probably go on to sort of mechanical issues, about maybe Lewis Hamilton, but it's not like Rosberg's never had them. In his couple of seasons, he's had a few seasons with Mercedes where it hasn't gone his way. So I think it always sort of comes back around, and I think he's not only has the luck maybe been there mechanical wise, but he's actually proved that he can win races and he can do well in that car.
For me, there's only been one race this season where Rosberg has done poorly, and that was at Monaco, where he finished, I think, 7th or something, where he didn't have a good, or 5th maybe, he didn't have a very good race at all. Every other race, like you said, he's been up there, he's been consistent, whereas Hamilton, he's made sloppy mistakes here and there. And this is going to rile some people, I still blame Hamilton for crashing into Rosberg at Spain. I think Hamilton started that crash. Obviously some people might disagree with me there, but stuff like that. And then at Singapore as well, Hamilton was just second best all weekend. He just, people will pinpoint, if it wasn't for Malaysia, Hamilton would have won the title, but I just don't think that was necessarily the case. Rosberg realised, okay, I only need to finish second in these next 4 races and I win. So that's what he did. He could do that easily.
Well, Azerbaijan was another one, wasn't it? Exactly. Hamilton just wasn't there, whereas Rosberg, like you said, every weekend he sort of came there, bar Monaco, and performed and did what he needed to do. And I think, as a team as well, that's what you want from your drivers.
I think you can pin a lot on the Malaysia, his engine failing, but Hamilton's just made too many mistakes this season, too many sloppy starts, for example. And Azerbaijan, like you said, he crashed out in qualifying. He's made too many mistakes this season for me. He's done very well. Obviously, he's only 5 points behind, but to win a championship, you have to, to finish first. First, you have to finish, as they say.
Going back to the race at the As Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, it was, of course, the last few laps that made it very exciting. Let's be honest, not most of the race was same old kind of Rosberg, Hamilton ruling it on the circuit, but in the last 10 laps, there was obviously a bit of a backing from Hamilton when there was Nico right on his tail, and then you had Vettel and Verstappen right behind him, and they're 2 drivers you don't want to mess with. What were your thoughts on that tactic by Hamilton? There's been some argument saying he shouldn't have done it, he should have been faster and make it like it was, going at normal speed instead of trying to make his teammate nearly go behind the other 2.
See, from a driver's point of view, I think Hamilton did exactly the right thing. If Rosberg raced for a different team, Hamilton would have done that. So why is it any different because he's on the same team? He wants to win the championship. He's got a good chance of winning a championship. He's absolutely going to go for that. So I personally don't see anything wrong with what Hamilton did. But from a team point of view, obviously Paddy Lowe came on the radio and said, Hamilton, can you speed up? And he wasn't having any of it. So I think if the team wants you to do something, you should do it. Because, for the safety of it would have been a disaster for Mercedes if Rosberg or Hamilton had retired at that race, because it always is. It's expensive to put F1 cars back together, and finishing lower down is fewer points, and that's not good for business. So from a team point of view, I think Hamilton was in the wrong. But from a driver's point of view, going for the championship, I don't see a problem with what he did.
I also think that it would have been a different factor if they hadn't won the Constructors yet. if it was coming down to the last race of the year at Abu Dhabi and they still hadn't won the constructors, then you have to go with new team orders. If they're telling you to speed up and you're going to lose points and maybe lose the constructors, then you're going to have to do that. Whereas they'd already won it comfortably.
Yeah.
They said they'd let them race, and they let them race up to the last 9 laps, and then they tell Lewis Hamilton to speed up. Like Harry said, if he just carried on doing his normal thing and Rosberg just followed him behind, he's not going to win the championship, is he?
No.
So he's just going to sort of just basically let him win behind. So you had to do something. If you want to be a world champion again, you've got to do that.
There has been articles and reaction to this race by saying that Mercedes might suspend Hamilton for next season, which just sounds like it's not going to happen. That he's one of the best drivers on the circuit, if not the best driver on the circuit right now, and the amount of money they give him as well, he makes millions as his wage. Do you think? I mean, there's two arguments. Paddy Lowe obviously isn't happy with Lewis Hamilton with what happened in that race, and Toto Wolff has said to Sky that if it was him, he would have done the same tactic. Now, there's obviously two sides to it. Some problems going on in the garage, you could say.
It's all a big game. It's all a big marketing ploy. Of course they're going to do that, and then you've got Nicky Lauda, their chief stirrer. I don't actually know what he said, but viewpoints like that generate clicks on web pages. So it's all a load of rubbish. I think Hamilton probably get a slap on the wrist, telling off, don't do it again. But it's the last race of the season. Who really cares?
You heard it. Don't click it. Right. Let's talk about Rosberg again. Let's not get this glory away from him. Where do you rank him in the whole list of world champions? Not specifically, but is there any drivers that you think are below him? Do you think he's up there? Or
But there's been drivers in the past that have been deserved of a world championship and haven't got it.
Like Massa.
There's a long end of list of drivers that should have and didn't win the championship, and I think for Rosberg to win it this year and sort of prove, maybe not prove doubters wrong, but there was definitely people out there that thought he can't win it. If Hamilton's his teammate every year, he's not going to win the championship. And I think he's gone out there now and he's sort of proved a point that he can win it. So I think next year will be interesting because they're sort of not on the same level because obviously Lewis has won more, but they're both now world champions. So it'll be interesting to see next year how that unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, there's 33 world champions, which doesn't sound like a whole lot when you think about it, when you consider how many drivers have been in F1. But I'd say Rosberg is probably maybe about the 10th best. I wouldn't like to rank who was above him, but he's definitely up near the top, simply because whilst I don't think he's not the complete package, because his wet weather driving isn't up to par at all, and his overtaking leaves a little to be desired. He can do it, but he very rarely does it. But his his consistency and his sort of tactical thinking is second only to really Alain Prost. He was known as the Professor because he was saw F1 like a game of chess, really. So I think Rosberg, he's definitely up there, definitely one of the best. I still don't necessarily think he's as good as Hamilton, but he's really rather good, I'd say. Definitely top 10.
Now let's have a bit of fun to end this Motorsport Monday. If you were Toto Wolff or whoever's in charge of who the drivers are, now if you had to pick one driver to stay and one to go, who'd you pick, Hamilton or Rosberg? Jack, let's start with you.
I think it's sort of, you've got to look at it differently. I mean, Toto Wolff said it the other day. I mean, if you think of a driver aspect, you go with Lewis Hamilton because he is probably the better driver than Rosberg overall. But if you go business side, Rosberg's been there for so many years. He's done everything that the team have always asked for. And he was more consistent than Hamilton this year. I know mechanical, and people are going to go on about it, that real big Hamilton fans, that he had issues. But Rosberg overall was the better driver this year for Mercedes. So I think business-wise you'd go with Rosberg, driver-wise you'd go with Hamilton because I think he's the better driver. And that's sort of I'd struggle to sort of pick one between the two.
See, and you've got to look at the flip side of the coin. Your question sort of exists in a world where there are no other teams. But if you get rid of Hamilton, he's going to go to another team.
Yeah.
He's going to make your life a misery if you're Mercedes. And Hamilton, if you went to somewhere like Ferrari or like a reinvigorated McLaren, he's going to be a real headache for you. So I think it is a tough one, which you'd rather get. I think I agree with Jack completely, to be honest. Looking at it from a business point of view, it would make perfect sense to keep Rosberg. He's a German driver, a German team. It looks good from that point of view with sponsors and whatnot. He is a world champion, so there's no doubt about his ability anymore. But Hamilton, he's just so fast. He's so very good. But so I don't know.
So we can't decide.
We can't decide.
Well, all I can say is that Nico is the world champion, so congratulations to him. The plus side is for Lewis Hamilton, though, is he doesn't get to see Nico's face in the garage for a few weeks now. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel. Thank you.